All right, it's Ron Goodall, FightHype.com. I'm here with Sena Agbeko, who obviously, on social media, I don't know if you noticed that your name's been brought up a little bit over this week. Um, First things first, how's everything been going? How's life out? You're out in Nashville, I think I seen on
Oh
social.
yes, I'm still very much in Nashville. I just changed my coaching team, so I've been doing a lot of great things with my new team.
Hmm.
Right now, the focus is on training, and making sure that I'm getting myself right for the upcoming year. So I'm hoping that the new year will bring new challenges, new things to explore, especially since I have made the move to 160 pounds now. Um, my last big fight was at 168, and I just decided that hey, why don't I go down to 160? It's always been an option for me, but I just always stayed at 168 because it's been comfortable. Aside the fact that I've always also been very comfortable sparring, some of the bigger guys at light heavyweight and even cruiserweight. So um, now I feel like it's ready to go down to 160, make that move, and give myself a real chance at becoming world champion.
Is that the team that you switched to when you fought Pierre Williams recently, out in
Yes,
November? Okay.
yes, yes. So they're over at I've worked with them from the beginning, kind of in the back. The head coach of the gym, Christy Halbert, she's an Olympic coach. She was part of the U.S. Olympic team that went to the 2012 Olympics, where Clarissa Shields won gold. So she was head of the women's team. Now she acts as a consultant for USA Boxing. So she owns the gym where I currently train. But my head coach at the moment, his name is Billy Falco, and he works directly under her. So that's my team now, and that is the approach that I'm using going forward. Yeah,
And that's out in Nashville, all right.
yeah, that's how in Nashville, Tennessee. Obviously, you know that I don't know if people know a lot about Nashville, but Nashville's a Biden boxing city. Like we have a lot of really good fighters, developmental level, style fighters. The only other notable fighter that I can say right now that came out of here is of course Caleb. Caleb, trained right over here in our gyms as well. So that's the only other notable fighter. But there's a very good foundation for the development of boxers here. And that's what I want to, stick to and just go back and then, retouch touch up my foundations and then, come back even stronger.
What's up? I know they got a lot of music out there and a lot of food, so
Well, yes, country music, that's the staple. That's what people come here for. So yeah.
awesome. Well, look, going into, your career change, I know that you took two back-to-back losses before you made the adjustment, obviously upper, bigger weight class at 168.
Mhm.
Um, what made you just go back to back within such a short time frame, after
I
the
mean, the
Morel
thing
fight?
is, the Morrell fight, there were so many things that I wasn't satisfied with. So many things that, made me very unhappy, including, the drug testing protocol, the whole deceit. And then obviously, the first fight, which was scheduled to be in Vegas, and then, they pulled that, grand move to get me off the card because they were scared the very first time and tried to essentially destroy my career, but by claiming that I had a brain, whatever, aneurysm on my scan, which I was able to, disprove in time. But the commission still, refused to go ahead and approve my license for me to fight in Vegas against Morel. So I feel like that whole thing was orchestrated just to get me off that car so they could better prepare for me in Minnesota with, with whatever. So until you know, obviously we can't go back in the past, but I asked for drug testing. They made us sign documents to the effect that we were going to be tested, yet we were never tested. And when I demanded it in Minnesota, I was just told that, hey, you take it or you leave it. The state of Minnesota doesn't require testing, and we're not going to test. And I feel that for fights of that caliber, fights of a championship caliber should always be tested. It should be mandatory, regardless of, the level of the championship, and that was pretty much up there. This was an interim championship of the world, and there's no excuse. So I truly didn't feel like he beat me through his own, like, his natural God-given abilities. But the second fight against Iglesias was also an attempt. I just proven that, okay, fine, he got me with a lucky shot, and I can come back even stronger. And I haven't brought this up at all. And I didn't once raise an issue because I understood, I started to kind of understand how the game is, how the boxing game is. There was no testing for that fight as well. And this was in, of course, Canada. It wasn't another country. It wasn't, Quebec City. And I understood that I put myself in the same situation. I was essentially made a fool of the second time, but I'll leave that case be. I will just say that fine, Iglesias beat me fair and square, and I'll leave it at that. My goal right now is to set things straight. And I feel that even if guys, are on whatever they're on, I would have the best chance of beating them if, at least, I'm fighting on my true weight class, which is 160 pounds. So I train incredibly hard, and I feel that all things being equal, even someone that's on something, I should still be able to take them. And so long as I can keep taking the punches, I'll keep giving it. So, hence, the approach, the adaptation to try to overcome what I think is a big problem in the sport of boxing.
Now, I guess walk me back because ironically, right before I talked to you, I just interviewed David Benavidez literally
Yes.
about, and he told me, he actually watched the interview that you did with FightHype and spoke on that pretty much like, because people have suspected, hey, like people think I'm on drugs, so
Mhm.
I drug test out 14 weeks out, essentially what he says. I do 14
Mhm.
weeks out, and I did it with Caleb. I did it with Demetrius. I think he said
Mhm.
he did it with Caleb. So with the Morel fight, obviously watching what you said, he's like, I would like to do, drug testing for him. And he
Yes.
said that they actually, didn't have the drug testing going on. He was kind of questioning like what's going on. He
Yes.
mentioned that he was going to cancel it, and it wasn't until I think 9 weeks out, he's like, I'm canceling if we don't get drug testing.
Yes.
So um obviously there's been a consistency, I
Mhm.
guess, with you, and obviously not saying that he's pointing, saying he's on something, just like you
Mhm.
said he's not on something, but there is some sort of sense of suspicion.
Of
Um,
course. Yes, of course, there is a sense of suspicion because I mean, the thing is, even in the fight in Vegas, he had acne all on his back, on his face, and everything. And Benavidez fought Jose Benavidez. He was present when I fought Morrell in Minnesota. So, of course, these were concerns that I brought up, I raised with, and he actually was in my corner, was in my locker room as well because he had Valenzuela at the time fighting Chris Colbert. So we really had a good time, a lot of time to really talk and, really get to know each other. And I brought up that issue at the time too. And I think that he's very well aware of what, being on enhancements can do for you. And that's why he's very much concerned. And him and his son have decided that, okay, we need to be tested. My problem with Morel is, okay, if you have nothing to hide, why are you so adamant? And I also have a problem with, the way that in the past they filtered people to fight Morrell. So if you looking back from me going back to like maybe his last three or four opponents, we typically are like if super middleweight, we usually come off showbox wins, right? Showbox wins, and then of course we get a chance to fight for that belt. The problem is on these cards we get tested. We get tested. I got tested when I fought Isaiah Steen on the I believe well, it wasn't the last Showbox edition, but I got tested against Isaiah Steen. I beat him, and
out in
then
Atlantic City.
following that, I had Vada show up at my house to test me, and I remember that it was only after my results were published and showed that I was clean that I was offered the fight against Morel. The whole time he was never tested. And I believe he's never been bad tested. He's never been tested, period. So, I mean, and you have to know that there are residual effects, like, the benefits from the use of these steroids. And that's also something that's concerning because even if he stopped using it, I mean, some of that power is still going to be there because he's trained with it pretty much his whole career. And of course, I'm just speculating, but I mean, that is very much a possibility. So, I mean, I think that unfortunately, boxing is so it's not properly regulated. So we have all these businessmen that are coming on board as investors who are putting money into boxers. And that's what every boxer essentially is, a business. Each boxer is very much a business. So they want to make sure that, okay, our investments go right. We get the belt. And then once we get the belt, we retain the belt as long as we can and keep, making money over and over again. And as long as the fighter retains the belt, they keep making the money. You understand? And so there's no real like motivation for them to lobby for changes, for stringent testing, because they are using the current system against all the up and comers. And that is very much a big problem. So I'm definitely very happy that Benavidez and his team are insistent on that. Um, as of now, of course, everything is a little silent. I hope that they're not looking for ways to try to cleanse their system because that's very much a thing as well. So I'm just, watching from afar. I'm in my own little corner to just, doing what I can to set things straight because I've pretty much dedicated at this point about half of my life, my entire life to boxing. So I have to make sure that, I come through successfully.
Well, I mean, a lot of the information you're giving is extremely insightful. And from a fighter perspective, I know at the end of the day, like you're gonna want to fight at any
Hmm.
case. And I know, I think you mentioned before that Minnesota doesn't do drug testing essentially. And you were promised drug testing in the contract for Morel when it came to fight night. Prior to you actually stepping in the ring, you were looking for information and
Hmm.
they stated, all right, let me find out. Came back. Minnesota doesn't require it, so Team Morrell opted out, and
Yes.
then you proceeded to fight. So I guess two questions is one, what made you want to proceed, right? I think I have the obvious
Hmm.
answer, right? But
Hmm.
and then when you heard about like that moment of they opted out, like did
So
you?
it's two things. It's two things, right? As a fighter, when you're going into a situation that you never experienced before, you'll always have, utmost confidence that okay, you're gonna still be able to pull through like whatever obstacles come. And we my team had this belief because back in October of I believe it was 2022. I fought, I believe his name was Harris, for the WBC USA super middleweight belt. And there was some issues over there during that fight because my team, when they went to watch them hand wrap, discovered some clear unlabeled vials, right? And syringes. So we brought that issue up with the commission. And the Iowa Commission claimed that it was adrenaline. And I'm like, oh, well, why are you guys speaking for them? Allow them to themselves to say what it is. But what I suspected it was something that was given to him essentially to be able to weather like heavy blows that are thrown. I've after since the Morrell fight, I've since done a lot of research into the type of stuff that's available, and apparently there is a substance that you can take. And the reason I suspected that it was something that was given to him to kind of weather the storm was I watched all his fights leading up to literally every single one of his fights leading up to the fight against me. And every time he got hit, he would be all, he would panic and move around, try to shake his head, and then, come back at me, come back at his opponent after, kind of gathering himself. Against me, the first round, he was very tentative. And then his promoter, who actually paid for the fight and paid for the belt to be on the line, he stood guard at the entrance to the locker room and never left. But after that first round, he walked to the corner and he told him whatever he told him. I don't know whatever he told him, but he essentially told him what I suspect he told him was to keep coming forward, that there's no way I can hurt him. Because the very he fought very tentatively. But after the first round, after the promoter left the entrance of the locker room and then told him whatever he told him, he started charging at me the whole fight. He was coming at me with pretty much reckless abandon. So after that, the promoter went back and stood in front of the locker room the whole time. And all of this is on the video of the fight, which I have. So he went back and then he stood guard at the entrance because he didn't want anyone to go there and try to uncover what it was that, my team had seen while they were wrapping their hands. So he kept coming at me the whole fight. And I kept, tagging and breaking him down, hitting him with the hardest shots. And this guy was like a zombie. He just kept coming. And it wasn't until the ninth round that, the referee decided that, hey, like this guy's taking too many shots. And if he keeps taking shots like this, it might be a really bad situation. So the referee stepped in and stopped the fight because he was just taking too many shots. It was almost like he was, like I said, he was a zombie. He was taking the shots, but he wasn't feeling it. So that was an instance where, of course, this is all an assumption, right? That they doped and we still overcame them and beat them. So with that in mind, going to the Morrell fight, I was like, well, even if he's doped or whatever it is, I should be able to overcome that. But then, of course, there are various things that people use. People can use it in training. People can use it in training and fight night, or people can use it on just the fight night. So going back to the reasons, I felt like, yeah, fine. Even if it's something that he's doped, I have trained well properly. I should be able to stand toe to toe, move if I need to, and just carry the fight to the distance. But also, in addition to the whole thing, it was also the very last Showtime telecast. And it was a memorable event. It's something that you want to be a part of. It's not something that you want to be remembered as a guy uh, who walked out on last minute. And at the time, everybody, my whole team thought about it. We talked about it, and they were like, it's worth taking the risk, and we took the risk. And I don't have any regrets. At the end of the day, what happened happened, and it's taught me lessons. And from this moment on, or from since the Iglesias fight, I've just decided that okay, I'm going to make only the best decisions for myself and for my career going forward. So I mean, it's in hindsight, yeah, hindsight is always 2020, but it is what it is.
Obviously, there's a lot of fighters that's going to watch this, and obviously, people are going to dissect and pick things from it, and like to highlight the fact that one, you're not accusing, but you're kind of looking at the process of saying these processes don't make sense, and if a fighter
Yes.
is clean, why wouldn't they opt in, and why wouldn't they want the benefit for not just the fact of, their opponent's sake, but themselves, right? And
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
and it raises suspicions, which what led to David kind of saying, no, we ain't fighting unless we're on this. So at all high levels, if anytime there's no drug testing in any type of big profile fight, similar like yours for like especially like
Hmm.
an interim title or some sort of eliminator or anything that high rankings, do you look at it and go, something's up if there's
Of
no drug
course,
testing?
absolutely. Something is always up. I mean, the thing about it, like showbox cards. Something, I mean, it's not the biggest, card, right? But then because it's set up by the right people, the Showtime team, I think that they generally did things right. I think it's usually up to the commissions too. The New Jersey Commission, I believe they do a lot of testing, especially fights of a certain magnitude. So I fought two times on Showbox cards now that we've been tested. So if they're testing on that level, why are they not testing at the world championship level where there's so much more money being made? You can tell me that it's because there isn't any money for the testing, and sometimes that's the excuse some people use. But there is money, so why don't we just test? And if you're not going to test, then make it free for all so that everybody can just juice. I mean, people die in this in the sport. You understand? People die in the sport. Um, I in 2020, I fought somebody that ended up passing away. I mean, the circumstances surrounding that are still very much like very clouded, and it's something that still bothers me to this day. So it's like if you guys are taking, people's lives for granted, I mean, you guys shouldn't be allowed to participate in the sport at all because you obviously don't care about human lives. Like the main thing in this sport is to hurt the other person. and you're essentially trying to turn yourself into a machine to hurt this person, and then now you're adding more things to turn yourself into this invincible machine. Like, can you imagine? And I think that what they probably want to happen is for somebody to die and for somebody to be criminally prosecuted before they actually start taking actions. And it shouldn't have to come to that for that to happen.
Do you feel, I guess with the Ryan Garcia and Devin, because I know that they're essentially, doing a lawsuit. I know it comes down to like the money that, that's been split amongst, I think, Golden Boy, and it's a lot more detail. But I know that the summary is that, it all started because Ryan failed a drug test. And if he didn't
Mm-hmm.
fail the drug test, none of that would have happened. So I know some people have criticized heavily of the idea of one, they feel like Devin's performance with or without, the Osterine. And obviously with someone like you who went through a lot of situations with making sure that, all right, I'll never be in a position without drug testing. Do those little molecule things that people have taken for granted and kind
I
of
mean, it
not giving Devin the benefit of the doubt?
it drives me crazy. It drives me crazy, the apathy. And then actually, this report that I saw that, Brian Garcia had. It's like most boxing fans don't realize, the difference that these performance enhancing drugs make. And then some people, I read comments where people were like, "Oh, it was just a tiny little bit." Obviously, it's like he used the thing. That's why it's even in his body to begin with, and that's like he was trying to obviously get it out of his system. And what was found was what little of it was left. These guys need to realize that this is as like let me this is the best analogy. This is what I've always used, that in bodybuilding, right, the Mr. Olympia level and all that, we know that yes, they use steroids and whatnot. So you look at a bodybuilder at the Olympia level, right? You look at his physique, how big he is and how defined he is, and then you look at a natural bodybuilder. Now, a natural bodybuilder can be as lean, but they wouldn't have the size. They wouldn't even be able to compete next to them. Or they can get big, but what? They'll be fat. They'll never have the definition. So you just can't even get close to that. Now imagine people taking that and instead of building their muscle, they're using it to generate power and speed. And God knows, like there are all kinds of PEDs that make you super alert, like they enhance your cognitive ability. So you're sharper. Everything is coming. Everything that's happening is like 2 or 3 seconds slower to them. So they're able to process these punches coming at them like so much better that you literally don't stand a chance. And this is what the average boxing fan does not understand. And they need to maybe they need to get in the ring and experience it. I don't know how that's gonna happen. That's possible, but there's no way these things should be downplayed because it makes such a huge difference in the sport. And there's a reason why all these organizations have been set up over the years to make sure that these things don't happen. But then, as with all things, there will always be rule breakers and people who will look for ways to circumvent it. And that's what's happening in boxing. Boxing has essentially become free for all. And I truly believe that all the champions at the moment are taking advantage of the loopholes and are one way or another involved in some kind of doping. Again, it's merely my belief. I have nothing to substantiate or prove it, but it only takes, common sense and reasoning to figure it out. These people have investors behind them. They're making millions after every single fight. Boxing is the only sport where you can come out of jail and in a few years become a millionaire through that. It's only the only sport that anybody can just get a pro license by just walking into a commission and paying the fees and signing up for it. Think of it. Tell me any other sport where you can go pro by just buying a license or paying for a license. Tell me any other sport you can do that in. No other sport but boxing. So there's so many loopholes here that people seek to, exploit, especially all these businessmen, all these investors that are putting their money behind their fighters. And that's what I said earlier, that every fighter is essentially a business. And as these businesses compete against each other, the success of my business depends on making sure that yours fails. So, I mean, I'll pretty much adopt every measure that I can get away with. And what we need to do is make sure that, okay, there's stringent measures in place to make sure that, these drug testing protocols are observed.
Here's my last question on that topic is, obviously David is doing the drug testing.
Well, I want you to clarify because they're both David, so
Oh
maybe
yeah. Oh, I mean,
Benavidez,
to be
yes.
fair, they're both essentially. So the fight essentially, Morel and Benavidez are doing the drug testing.
Are they, has it
Nine.
has been confirmed they're both doing it now?
Yeah, that's what David told me. Well,
Okay.
Benavidez.
Okay, that's what Benavidez. Yeah, and
Yeah,
well, usually David usually means Benavidez, but
yeah, I know.
just, yeah.
No, you're 100% right. And so with Benavidez insisting that the fight has to go on, and what's your thoughts? Do you think Benavidez would have won without the drug testing, and if with the drug testing, which is now, does he win against what?
I think that it makes a big difference. And then also, I mean, there have been issues about like every time Morrell has fought outside of Minnesota, the results haven't been as, um, I mean, yeah, he fought a 40, what's his name, the Falcao, and that guy
Papa?
even, yeah, yeah, Falco, yeah, he even like, 2 years prior turned down a fight when he was the A side. He offered the fight to me, and I said yeah, and then they turned it down after I said yeah. So he was pretty much shot. He was just looking for a big payday. That was his only fight outside of Vegas, where I would say that outside of Minnesota that he won, emphatically. But every time, even following that fight he fought in California, I don't know what. I'm sure the testing protocol in California is a lot more strict. So we all saw how that went with Rod. And I personally know Rod. I of course contacted him and told him to insist on testing. I don't know if he followed through with that, but then we saw that fight how everything went. Just looking at them as fighters, Benavidez obviously has more experience, has been in more high pressure environments. I feel like, and the quality, they both have had one fight at middleweight, at light heavyweight, sorry. And I think Benavidez had, the better test going up. And I feel that he just generally has more experience. And I think he will beat Morel. Outside of that, though, I just my personal issue with Morel, I want him to be trounced, like really beaten really badly. But just the fair, me trying to give a fair analysis, I think Benavidez will definitely edge it. As to the manner of it, I don't know. But I think Benavidez is gonna come in with a high output. I think Morel is gonna get hit a lot more often than he has in the past, and he's gonna get overwhelmed. And I definitely predict the stoppage. I don't see the fight going the distance. So yeah,
And I think you have every room and right to feel the way that you do. So,
absolutely, 100%. Especially people who tried to destroy my career.